Hi, everybody, and good morning. It's morning in Tucson. It's a Saturday morning, and I'm Donna Reed, and I traveled and up with people in 1976 in Cast A. And this morning, my guest is Mike Bowe, who appropriately, technologically changed his name on the computer. So, good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Donna. How are you?
Good, good. And for those of you that haven't listened to all of these, I want you to know that his wife, Mona, was the very first interview I did. I had spoken with she and Sheila Detloff. Um, I never know if I'm saying her married name or I can't when I say Sheila. And they helped put it together. So Mona was the very first interview I did a few years ago. And Mike, I don't know if I told you this when I asked you to interview, but part of the reason that I started this was because of the Everyday Hero Awards.
Oh, great.
Because I felt that, we do these awards for people who are nominated out of 22 or 23,000 alumni.
Sure.
And and then there's the Sam Lanham and there's the Blanton Belk, but I have always felt like there were everyday heroes in every town. And often I think they're teachers. And so when I started this, I had a friend in Milwaukee who I also interviewed her because she taught for 40 years. I think she still goes back and does music things. And you also fall into a category of being
Yeah.
educated, you know. So part of the reason I wanted you here. All right, so tell everybody where you maybe grew up, saw a show, and a little bit of your evolution in Up with People.
Sure. I grew up in a little town called Dowagiac, Michigan, a town of 6,000 people. For those who traveled, the cast came to my community. It was one of those end of the year travel shows that you did to that they did to fill out the schedule. Again, it's this tiny town, and when Up with People came to town the two or three times it did, it was the biggest thing to come to town ever. I mean, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of Up with People. I was in college. I'd come home for the summer. Wasn't happy that someone was coming and going to borrow my bedroom because I had just come home from school. Was not happy about that at all. Uh, Probably wasn't very pleasant to the guys who came and stayed. Ended up having this would turn out ironically later. The stage manager was one of the
Oh,
two people that stayed at my house, and the person who took my bedroom and ended up interviewing me after the show 3 nights later, once he had convinced me Up with People was actually something interesting. I ended up traveling with his sister 2 years later as a student in Up with People in '82. A
oh,
guy named
funny.
Sandy Hoff, who and I believe was an '80 cast that I actually interviewed with. Um, and when I looked at it, it wasn't a. I'll just be really honest, and I hope I don't break Mr. Belk's heart. It was appealing to me because, again, as kind of that typical small town Midwestern. I mean, I'm painting with a really broad brushstroke here.
Hmm.
I hadn't traveled the world. I mean, we'd done car trips with my parents, and for me, it was an opportunity to do something really cool and
Hmm.
exotic, right? And
Hmm.
and building bridges wasn't on my radar screen at that point in time. Um, it, it it ended up being a transformative experience for me.
Right.
That's not how it started out. So I traveled as a student, and then immediately after that, it was the greatest thing I'd ever done, and spent 2 more years on technical staff after that. Then went home and finished my college up, finished my degrees, and then, golly, 4 or 5 years later, after finishing my first set, I came back for another 5 years on staff. So I ended up being working for Up with People on and off, either being a student or working for Up with People like 8 of the next 12 years after I came as a student, which certainly wasn't how it started. And I did everything from technical staff through student programs and logistics, and met Mona there. We were
What
on
year
staff
did you guys
together as a
meet?
married couple.
What?
Mona was my boss,
That's
actually.
right. I remember that. And you now are a number of people that I've interviewed that kind of had that separation, come back, separation, come back.
Yeah.
Did somebody call you? Did somebody call you and say, Mike, we need help with something? Or
No,
how did that
no,
transpire?
no. I had really made the clean break.
Okay.
I had the couple of years, um, but again, had gone through school. And it's almost a parallel experience to what I had as a 19 or 20-year-old being in college. I had come back. I actually left up with people and moved to LA for a year or two. I think I wanted to be a lighting guy. That
Hmm.
really didn't work out. I chased a girl that I had met, frankly, as a staff member and went to California and spent a couple years and came home and finished my degree. So what I found myself was, I'm now 25 or 26, had my degrees, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And again, as this kind of loops back on itself, it was the summer of 87, 88 when they did the huge Special Olympics show at Notre Dame.
Okay.
And that was Mona's cast. And
Oh.
I was living just outside South Bend, so went and saw the show. It was also my 5-year student reunion, and that just kind of relit the fire again.
Hmm.
So again, I had now finished school, and all of a sudden it was appealing again. So I actually contacted Willis Rebick, who was in the tech department at that point in time, and said, "Hey, if this anything ever comes up again, I realize I'm older. I realize, probably don't fit the mold as an re-entry level tech staff person." But he gave me a shot, and I showed up the first day in the warehouse in Tucson, and Mona walked in, and she had come in a day late. It was her birthday. She was all dressed up, and this is going to be your boss. And that's how I met her. She was the stage manager, and I was the lighting person in
That's
B89.
funny. Hold
Yeah.
on. I'm closing my email because it keeps dinging.
Yeah. Okay. So
So,
that's how I ended up coming back.
okay. I don't know if you know this, but I saw Willis when I was in Denver a few
Oh
months
my
ago.
goodness. Okay. Oh,
And only because I've been doing trivia here in Tucson with Rick Faubert, who knew Willis, who knew, it was just, and
right.
when 78E staged in Madison,
Okay.
Willis's host parents and my host parents were like brothers, sister, or something. So we hung
Right.
out, and then I hadn't seen him, so he met up with me,
Oh,
and actually was my son with me? My son was with me part of the time when I was up in Denver, which was really, really fun to see afterward.
Rick Faubert is the reason I came back on staff. Rick was my
I'm gonna
stage
have to tell
manager
him
my
that
student
I'm
year. Oh, he knows. Oh, and
no, no, no. Oh,
we
that
ended
we're
up
doing
living
the
together in
interview?
LA for a couple of years.
No,
So
no,
yeah.
no. I mean, I'm gonna have to tell him that we're doing this interview.
Yes. Go ahead.
The trivia thing is hysterical because he knows all this random crap that the
Yes, he
rest of.
does. He's a tech staff guy. It's what we do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, okay, why do I have you like in Fostoria in my head? Why do I have you
That,
in
that
Ohio?
was that was where my family was originally from. My
Ah,
family is originally from Northwest Ohio. My dad took a transfer when I was in middle school and moved up to Michigan. So
okay.
Astoria, which
Because for
yeah,
those, yeah, so in my brain, you've always been like I had Fostoria, and then of course Fremont, where I was from, and
yep,
we were, competing teams in high school and everything. But what's ironic, Mike, is I was doing the road trip that I was just doing. You guys were on another cruise or whatever,
absolutely.
doing what you do. But I was going through all the cornfields, a lot of corn, a lot of soybeans, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois. And because of car troubles I didn't want to do the major highways. So I was seeing a whole lot of small towns. And it made me think about Fostoria, how to get through Fostoria, you have to go through town. And it's
Yes,
a state route, but it turns and it turns and it turns. And if you know that, it's great. But
right,
when you're traveling alone without Wi-Fi in some of these other small towns, and you're
yeah,
like, then what happens?
exactly.
Where do I go from here? So anyway, you were on my mind as you and Mona and Shana were, traveling
Yeah,
or whatever, and I was going through small towns.
yep. No, that's yeah. We both come from very similar
Yeah,
backgrounds.
yeah. So how did okay, you finished your Up with People time. What
Mhm.
was your degree in, first of all?
But history and economics were my dual undergrads,
History and economics. Okay. So
which didn't really
now
qualify me to do much of anything.
Well, I love my son, but his are in theater and script writing. So,
There you go.
tell me, when I talked, I mentioned this to you, and then Mona messages me privately, or whatever, and we were talking about the education piece of it, but
Right.
specifically that you have worked in two different arenas, kind of very much those who have, and they're very much those who have not.
Right.
So, do you work simultaneously in two different school systems? Tell me a little bit about
Um,
what you're doing now.
what I do now, and it was what's really interesting about this, if at least to me, is if you had asked me, when I first interviewed as a 19-year-old, I think my dream would have been I wanted to be a high school teacher and
Mm.
coach baseball. And that was what I thought I wanted to do one day. And then Up With People came along, and it was such a transformative experience. And at that point in time, I thought, gosh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do something completely different. And I ended up working for Up With People again for a number of years. And then when we moved back to this area, I went into higher education and really worked with adult students. I was doing financial aid, enrollment management, and working with, vocational rehab students and adults going back to community college or state schools, helping them finance their education. So I'd gotten completely away from that and worked with that for probably the first 15 years after coming off the road. And
Okay.
long story short, you get to a certain point and you're like, okay, it really kind of parallels where I was as a 19 or 20-year old,
Hmm.
where I stopped at that point in time and it's like, Jesus, is this really what you want to do? Is this it? Is this why I spent all those years, traveling? And by then, of course, the lessons, the message of Up With People and building bridges and all those things had really taken root. So we had an opportunity where I was able to kind of take a step back and really look at what I wanted to do. And I realized that while helping adults get into college and finance their education was fine, it wasn't feeding that kind of kumbaya part of my heart and personality. And Mona's the one that said to me, hey, listen, since I've known you, the one thing that you've talked about is you taught, way back when, back in the mid 80s. Why don't you go try that again?
Ah.
And that's kind of where it all ended. I was in my oh gosh, mid 40s, and made a complete hard transition. I went back and I subbed for a year and ended up as a 40, again, late 40s person becoming an elementary school teacher. It was all of a sudden like a third act, a whole third different
Yeah.
career arc.
It's great
So
though. Yeah.
it is. And I think if you're wired up a certain way, working with kids is just the greatest thing you can do. Again, ironically, that's why I didn't teach coming right out of college. When I mentioned, after that first time with Up With People, I went back and had my degree. I did teach high school for a year and left immediately because I didn't like kids. But
Mm.
you're a young person then, and it didn't resonate. So decades later, I came back to what I first wanted to do as a 19-year-old in my small town. But I don't think I would have ever done that without the Up With People experience and without everything that opened up for
Everything
me.
else.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it really
Yeah.
did. So it wasn't disappointing to go back. It was wonderfully rewarding to go back with, the life experiences and the skills that I'd picked up. Um, you have to be wired a certain way to teach and to work
Yeah.
with kids. And I
And
wasn't in my early 20s.
are you with fifth graders? Is that
I'm with K5. I work in a position. I'm fortunate to work for a fairly affluent, well-to-do district in northern Indiana, outside South Bend. Um, I teach. I teach as kind of I teach computers, which is interesting,
Oh.
being that I'm of a generation. Yeah, exactly.
I'm
I'm
sorry,
a
that was funny. Yeah.
generation that's pre-computer, and you had to walk me through changing my name on this program, but I teach computers to K through 5 kids, and
Wow.
I also it's taught as a special, kind of like PE and music, but my district has it as a special, and so I teach computers to all K through 5. I have literally 5 through 10-year olds. I work with 400 different kids a week. Um, it's amazing fun. It's great fun, but it's also a field that, and again, I'm broad brush stroking here a little bit. There aren't a lot of males in,
Yeah.
um,
No, no, no,
and
you're right. Yep.
and I work in a building that isn't full Title One, but does have a good Title One, a little bit lower income,
Income, right?
socioeconomic, a lot of single parents, single parent families. So you don't step into that role necessarily, but you can step into kind of being a little bit of a male role model,
Hmm.
um, or just helping a little bit
They
with
may or
that.
may not even have a male role model, right?
No, or just, and again, I guess it isn't gender specific, but just another role model. I guess I'm probably generalizing a little bit too much. The male part isn't that important. Just another role model, the kids that necessarily don't have someone and can fill a place in their lives a little bit. And
Yeah.
that's probably the most rewarding thing for me. I hope they learn appropriate computer use, and we can work with them on internet safety. And that's a big deal these days. But most of them are plenty tech savvy. I will fully confess to having a 10-year-old show me how to use my new iPhone not that long ago. But
Yeah. No, they're growing up with
so
it
what,
from the,
yeah, what
yeah.
we're working with is, internet safety and being savvy. And
Yeah.
um, yeah,
which
so that's
which
what
is
I do and I love it.
exacerbated right now, in my opinion, based on
Yeah.
everything. The number of things that I receive from people that don't exist. I called a law firm the other day, Mike, back in New York.
Hmm.
She said he retired 2 years ago, and I'm getting these calls from all over the country, and
And
it's
then, wow.
supposed text messages, bills that are due,
Right.
and I've blocked. It just goes on and on. And
Yeah.
I know to watch for it, but it still makes me think, oh gosh, do I need to check my bank accounts?
Sure.
Just
Yeah.
everything like
Yeah.
that. It's also kind of interesting because I read this whole thing the other day about making sure that kids get their outside play time and their creativity time and the time at the dinner table where their phones are put away. And, what age? I don't have that. I don't have young kids and
Right.
I don't have grandkids. So it's hard for me to make a judgment about any of it. I can say what I think in my brain, but
Right.
I'm attached to it for my own work. So it's really, really interesting. And I get I get angry when somebody tells me that in order to get a discount at a grocery store, I have to have another app. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I don't want
I
another
think
app.
I think our focus, particularly with that age group, is phrase I hear is digital citizenship,
Mm.
and being a good digital citizen, and
Oh,
and
that's cool.
it's a large overarching concept, but just teaching them, they're not gonna. I mean, certainly a family can choose to keep their child away from devices, and I
Yeah,
fully support that. But
yeah,
keep teaching them how to be responsible and a good digital citizen,
yeah,
and cyberbullying. We touch on all those things, which is
yeah.
important.
Since you teach the age bracket you do, and I watched a movie last night, I'm going to tell you about this movie. Do you have Netflix?
I do.
It's a Turkish movie. For whatever reason, I watch a lot of Turkish films. I don't know why. It's an hour and 19 minutes, and it's called Man Abandoned.
Okay.
And it's about a young man that winds up in prison, I'll tell you that. But it's his niece that saves him
Okay.
ultimately, and I don't know, she's 10, 7. I have no idea. But the importance of the unconditional love of
Right.
a child. So when you were talking about maybe that 19-year-old wasn't ready for that, and or for smart alecky high school kids when you're maybe only 4 or 5 years older, right?
Right.
You go in and you're like, oh
Right.
yeah, that student teacher, he could be my boyfriend now.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, yeah. It's yeah. It just, yeah, these things all loop back
yeah,
around, and
yeah,
that's,
yeah,
I think probably the most rewarding thing I do, though. Certainly, if we're teaching them, the specific computer things, that's great. But
yeah,
if you can, somehow just help shuffle them through a difficult time in life, and I'm not in a position where, I'm necessarily grading them. I mean, they
right,
certainly, some of them receive a grade from me. But
yeah,
that's not my role in
yeah,
in the educational cycle. Um, it's just to be there as a good presence, and I,
yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah,
that's that's the big appeal for me.
yeah,
Just the fact that that's where I ended up
yeah.
back at
After that,
back at
yeah,
that square one is, yeah,
yeah, the
kind of amazing.
circle of life, kind
Yeah,
of thing. Yeah. So,
exactly.
tell me, I'm going to go back to some up with people things. So,
Yes, sir.
when you were traveling, is there a favorite place that you went?
Europe, which I
Yeah,
know is
just
a
Europe in,
broad,
okay.
yeah, but that was always that was a dream for me.
The small
Very,
town kid
very
like
much,
me. Yeah.
very much a history guy.
Mm,
That was really exotic, going to Europe. And
yeah,
again, my parents, it was the 60s and 70s. They just didn't have the funds. We
right.
car tripped a lot, but we had been to
So,
Niagara Falls once
hmm
and across the Mississippi once.
hmm
To me, Europe was this place where history and food and the full sensory Carolyn Lee experience, that she talked about was
The full
that
sensory Carolyn Lee experience. I love
experience. I
only an Up with People alumni of a
exactly,
certain time
exactly.
frame would even understand that, Mike.
And so not only was that my first time truly out of the country, but going to Europe, I was one of those. I had no performing talent at all. I was living proof. I know they said they could teach everybody to do something in the show, and I am living, breathing truth of that being just terribly untrue. I was unteachable. I had no skill on stage at all. So I went on PR a lot. I did 3 internships. I was sent on PR 4 times. So I was that in that first group that they sent ahead of the cast
Mhm.
to Europe. So not only was I going to Europe and going to, out of the
Ooh.
country, but going to Europe for the first time, I was being sent over with a group of 8 people to set up the first few cities and then sent to, the Zandam in the Netherlands with one other girl to do PR and set it up. And
That's cool.
so
That's
to me,
cool.
that was just, and eventually I ended up really loving Italy. Italy ended up being probably my favorite place I traveled.
I started telling people they can't pick Italy because so many people pick Italy. There's a couple of these interviews where I'm like, okay, you can't say Italy,
Right.
especially those that are a generation or 10 or 12 years ahead of us because they staged there. They did, they
Sure.
did so much there. And that's, Paul Caldwell can speak fluent Italian and, and stuff like that. So it makes Italy's got something going on that everybody loves it.
Well, I think that's, but I love the Benelux countries, but I
Ah,
think, because that was my first experience. That was my
okay, right.
first,
Yeah.
for me, that was the first time I walked into the little, home treat shop or
Yeah,
got,
yeah.
or, with,
Little
with my,
square, the
well, and
Grumplas or something, or
I had changed my PR money from dollars to guilder, and so that was that first full experience, and it was that my
yeah.
host brother taking me for my first European beer, which was, all these things were, great
Oh yeah.
fun. They were, yeah, those still resonate with me, and this was 1983, and
It's
and I
interesting that
swear I can
you
still taste some of those things.
yeah, it's interesting that you called it exotic because I'm from a town of 500 people. Fremont was bigger. It was about 17,000, but
Right.
my little farm town about 500. And mom and dad traveled some because dad won awards where now you might come to Scottsdale. Back then they went to Hong Kong and they went to,
Right.
Rome and all that. So that's the only reason they had left the country.
Okay.
Um, and being a bicentennial child here, and up with people, it was Mexico. That was it.
Sure.
And no offense, I loved Mexico. And afterwards, when Mona and I have talked about the people make the places, right? That
Right.
I've been back to Mexico City 3 or 4 times, but as a young person, that wasn't the place that I wanted to go. I wanted to go to
No,
Europe, just
no,
like you.
no, and that was, in the 82, 83 era, 2 casts went to Europe and 2 went to Mexico, and it was a huge. Now, in hindsight, I've toured Mexico 3 or 4 times, and it was
Right.
an unmatched, wonderful. I mean, what
Experience.
a loving, full, embracing experience that was.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
just funny to think about. So
Oh,
are there
absolutely.
any, okay, so you were not on the stage as much as you were behind the scenes. Is there still a song or two from the show? I'm going to ask you, um, because the other day, Randy and Leanne Hamilton recorded, "Here's to all you parents raising kids while the kids are raising Cain." And so there's all these fun songs that don't get done at reunions. We do Roads, we do Moonrider, we do Up with People.
Right.
So is there a song that is maybe heartfelt one of your favorites and or a funny one that's one of your favorites?
Um, no, I know that's good. I will tell you that I again all those tours I did, I look back on, and again being on tech all those years, closing song from every show makes me a wreck. I can't have it on my Spotify playlist without that being
Yeah.
I just it's one of those if you know you know kind of things.
Yeah.
And I think I traveled with 4 or 5 different actual shows because I caught the
Yeah.
transition between shows. So there's not a specific, I mean, it might be an
Okay.
odd answer, but there really isn't. Other than I can just say the opening show, the opening song and the closing song to every one of those.
Ah,
Just
that's interesting.
I get a little good. I can't even tell you what the opening and closing songs were, but just in a lot of these shows
The
right now, off
energy
the
of the
top of my head,
beginning and then yeah,
I'm literally getting goosebumpy thinking of that because yeah, that was yeah.
yeah.
So the closing songs make me a wreck.
Were you around when there was kind of, I call it one of Paul Caldwell's talk sing songs about
Yes,
what was happening in Bosnia and
yes.
about the young. So on this trip that I just did in Fort Wayne, because that's where I got towed when I broke down on the Ohio-Michigan line. The
We
car got,
like to refer to that as Fort Fun.
pardon?
We call that Fort Fun around here.
Fort Fun? Okay,
Yeah,
well,
that's yeah, that's a bit sarcastic,
that's
but yes.
funny. That's fun. So the girl that helped me with my car at the Infinity dealership, I knew from her name she was from Eastern Europe, and her name was Manila Rizvik. And I said, "Where were you born?" And she said, "Bosnia."
Oh my
And
goodness.
I said, "And why Fort Wayne?" Because I always wonder why immigrants
Right.
wind up where they, And she said, "Well, we had family here." I said, "How old were you?" And she said, 12. I think she's 41 or 42 now. It was her
Okay.
birthday the day I was there, and I didn't know that.
Good grief.
But she said that it was the war that brought her
Yeah.
to the end. And so I immediately go to that song, Mike, that one
Okay.
of the Muslim and the Christian, that
Right.
yeah. And so I think about how timely and how my brain is always connected to music, and I wake up with some random song in my head, and how so many of what was written for Up With People still resonate. They still
Absolutely.
resonate with what's going on in our world all the time, everywhere. They're timeless. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and then there's the fun ones. Like I said, there was one that was it might have been before you then. It was like, "Hey y'all, throw me the ball." It was a basketball one.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's it
It was
just
actually that's the show I interviewed with.
oh, okay,
I
okay.
don't remember what the song was, but I know it was in the first show I saw.
Yeah, yeah. And so I always wonder, I should ask the dancers sometime like what
Yeah,
they
that's not
liked, what they
I'm
liked.
not a
That
dancer.
wasn't you.
No. That was not me. No.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask you something. You and Mona are like cruise king and queen. You
We
cruise all the time. You go back to the same places because I follow and you have your favorite restaurant in these islands and stuff like that. So
right.
um, what about that attracts you?
Yeah. That's a great question. We have 2 very distinct types of travel. We still love to road trip and adventure
Yeah.
trip.
Yeah.
We do that a lot.
Yep.
But we also have the full relaxation, and we're busy. We're busy people. Mona has an incredibly busy job, so
Yep.
we like the kind of trips where we can just go and
Chill out.
be. But I think the thing with for us at least, cruising is it's a great balance of she can do what she wants, which is completely different from what I like, and
Right.
I can do what I like during the day. But then we
Mhm.
can come back together in the evening, and there are the things we both like to do, whether it be go to dinner and kind of share our days, and
Yeah.
then go to shows and kind of entertain ourselves in the evening. That's probably the big appeal, I think.
Yeah.
Plus, again, it's there's a part of me again growing up in my family certainly wasn't poor by any stretch, but we weren't affluent by
Right.
any
Right.
means either. And again, from a small town, for me, a cruise would have been
Oh
something
yeah.
completely
Yeah.
unattainable. A cruise will never be boring for me.
I,
It'll never be mundane. It will always be a big deal. Um, and every time I get on the ship, it's that way for us. And for people that know Mona, they know that she's had some health issues,
right.
and there have been some difficult times along the way. And it just seems like every time we get through one of those, we get on a cruise ship, and it's never
Like a
well, and
serenity.
it's our little celebration. It just seems like
Yeah,
some of
yeah.
these milestones, whether it be some of her health issues or some of her family health, or after the pandemic. That first
Mhm.
time we walked up the gangway, maybe we're putting too much significance on it, but that just seemed like okay, we've done it. We've
Yeah,
gotten
yeah.
past that next milestone. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah. That it's interesting. People either love them or don't, right?
Oh,
And
there's no one agnostic about a
yeah.
cruise. You
Yeah,
either
there's
really, really
that's
like
a
it,
good way to put it. There's no
or my
agnostic.
father, who's one of my favorite humans on earth, honestly would have probably rather had dental surgery than ever get back on a cruise. Just could not stand it, and I respect that.
Yeah.
There are places that are like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think the Southwest is like that, right? I mean, I
Oh
people who
yeah,
leave
people
the
either love
Southwest
it here. My kids want
exactly
me to stay here because when they come home, especially my youngest, who is still, his groomsmen were high school friends, and two of them are here, but he don't want to be here full time. They
right.
want more of the seasons of Denver. And it's so funny because every time I go back, I call this home 99% of the time, but when I drive back to Ohio and there are things I miss. Mike, the humidity was so off the wall when I was back there. I
It's been terrible this summer.
25 years and I was like, I forgot this. It's like,
There's a reason I've asked Faubert where he lives because we're retiring in the next couple of years, and it's like, what part of Tucson did you say you're in? Because
yeah,
we are
yeah.
doing a little bit of shopping, so
Well,
absolutely.
it would be really fun to have you wind up out here.
Yeah.
That would be really nice. So, any closing comments before I wrap this up?
Oh gosh, I don't think I'm profound enough to come up with anything too.
Well, you've
Uh,
already said a couple of things that I just adore. I love you saying I don't think there's any agnostic cruisers.
yeah, no, I'm so appreciative of just the experience that I had and how I've been able to,
Yeah.
gosh, again, it's, people, when you talk about your with people experience, unless you're talking to someone who's lived it.
Yep.
And I know, again, that's not necessarily everyone didn't universally love up with people
No,
either.
you're right. You're right.
And the
We all
longer I
had,
worked for the company, I can't say I loved everything about it, but it was, when I look at it now, again, wouldn't be where I'm at in so many ways. I would have never looped back to working in education and working with kids. I certainly would have never met Mona and had
no.
that family. And so I'm just
I
deeply
think,
appreciative.
Mike, we have 20, however many, under 23,000 bit alumni who all had exactly this same experience and totally different, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Just like siblings around a dinner table, right? Or whatever
sure.
the case may be. I was in San Antonio for a meeting of realtors, and I mentioned to this woman sitting next to me about Up With People. She goes, somebody else here. There was 94 of us. Somebody else here was in Up With People. And I'm like, who? She goes, I don't remember. It was like
Okay.
a speed networking thing. Anyway, I just met her. I just chatted with
Okay.
her and she's a 91A alumni.
Okay.
And then I told her about the Cactus Lounge and shared with her and stuff. So again, to me, when that happens, that's the kind of thing that gives me chills, thinking that this is a big world and there's
Sure.
20 some thousand of us, not 450,000 of us. So,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time. I'm glad we got it together. I will let you know
Yeah.
when I make it live.
Thank you.
And I may try to get Willis's email and send it to him, see if he'll watch it.
Yeah, that would be good because,
Yeah.
yeah, Mona and I owe an awful lot to Willis. So absolutely.
He's a great guy. It was super fun to see him.
Yeah.
He used to wear his Marshalltown, Iowa shirt, and I always just said Marshmallow Town. So
Yeah, there you go.
yeah. All right.
Thanks for having me,
Have a
Donna.
great day and please tell Mona I said hi.
I
Okay?
will. Thank you.
Thank you.